So, hi everybody. This is my Q&A answers session. You guys posted some questions on my Facebook at a request from me, so I have got the answers here for you. Leighton is the first questioner. So he says, who, if anyone, inspired you in taking up an instrument, and what has been your favourite gig? Inspired to take up my instrument, I think the inspiration to play bass came from the music. Bass in the music kind of was the element that I noticed the most and that I loved hearing the most. And so that was what actually inspired me to play the instrument, was the instrument itself, really. It wasn't a person specifically. My favourite gig. I've got so many that, and I get asked this question a lot, so I'm going to answer differently every time. That way I can give props to each gig, you know. So this answer is going to be my favourite gig of that era would have been, I think, Nebworth with Robbie Williams, because it was such an event. I never played to that many people before. I felt really intimidated by the experience, but really excited. It was an experience that I haven't actually repeated since, so it was unique. And to that end, it has to be on the list. It's on the list. It's my top favourite gigs as opposed to favourite overall. Graham, what is the best way to achieve the funky bass sound? Funky slap bass sound. That's an EQ situation, and it's a preference situation. I think that we could argue that this slap sound was better than this one or that one. There isn't a specific ideal bass sound when it comes to slap, because like anything with taste, it's subjective and it's what you prefer. I prefer a sound that's less of the highs, more of the mids that are there for clarity, and a lot of low end that allows the bottom end of the bass to still be very distinct. I don't like too much of the very, very, very brittle highs that you get on a lot of the active basses. So I prefer a passive bass sound for slap a lot of the time. That's a new thing, newish for the last 10 years or so. I used to play active basses a lot. Now I just prefer passive basses for slap especially, and my favourite is jazz bass. That's a Fender Jazz usually. Two single coil pickups. Best way to set up your bass amp or your bass to get the rhythmic tone and effect. I've played basses that sound great in the owner's hands that I can't make sound good. So one of those questions is your hands that creates the sound. The instrument definitely adds to it, but you have to create the sound from your touch and your tone. You can dial in more of the tone control, dial less of it. You can go through the EQ, work with the room. Sometimes you need more low mids or less low mids. Sometimes you need more high frequency dialed in because the room requires it, or sometimes you need a lot less. How long is a piece of string? Okay, Manal. How do your children feel about having a mother who just happens to be a super talented musician? Hey, thanks for the compliment. Having a mother who is doing what I do. They have said to me various times that they miss me when I tour. They also say they're really glad to see me doing what I love. It's a great lesson for them to see an adult in their world who's living a life that is the one that they chose, not forced upon them, not reluctantly participating in. So that's important. That's been good. I think overall, you know, I wouldn't want to speak for them. I think that it's mostly positive. The downsides are massive, but the positives are huge. So I think maybe they balance out. I think they like it ultimately. Are any of my children interested in pursuing a musical career? No, I don't think so. Not specifically. They all are to some degree involved in creativity. One of my children is writing. She's a producer as well, and she's songwriting as well. But she has other interests as well, which I'm glad to see that she has other interests. And my youngest plays guitar. She just uses it to sing songs. She likes songs. She works out the chords on guitar and then sings along. So she's got a good ear. I don't think they're going to do that as a profession. And I don't mind. Do what you want. Do what makes you happy. Grant, career highlights. Who have been your inspirations and what has kept you going through the lockdown, he says. I'm reading this bit of paper off to the left here, so that's why I keep glancing over there. What's kept me going through the lockdown has been music. I immerse myself in it. I've done more listening than I've ever done in my life, which is great because I've just been able to just put on my headphones and just while away hours listening to records, which I haven't had a lot of time to do because I'm not learning music for other people's gigs right now. So it's really great to have the space to enjoy music as a punter, as a fan, you know, because I've missed that a bit. Sometimes when you're busy working for other people, you don't have a lot of time to take in new albums and keep re-listening to albums that you love. So I've missed out on that in the past and I'm really enjoying that now. Career highlights are... Oh, that's hard because I've been doing this for a long time, so there's a lot of highlights, all oriented around people actually, as opposed to occasions. I love the occasions, I love the grandeur, the moments of excitement and, you know, the challenges, but I love that I've built really lovely relationships with individuals who are just lifelong friends, you know, and that is a massive career highlight that keeps repeating with new people. Oh my God, I'm so glad I met you. And you only meet people on tour sometimes. You might have gaps between when you see each other because you're in different countries, and then you just pick up where you left off because you spent so much time on buses and planes and trains and on stage and all the rest of it, that you have these friendships that are able to be picked up and put down and then picked up again, you know. Debbie, the most amazing experience working in the industry. Most amazing experience so far is I think when I sang vocals for Hans Zimmer's tribute to Prince when he passed away. That was really emotional. I was asked to sing the lead vocals for Purple Rain. I'm not a vocalist as my strength. I'd had trouble emotionally because I had my father was unwell and was actually passed away the following month after Prince's death. So it was a challenging time. And then I was there singing Purple Rain, feeling so heartbroken that we'd lost Prince. And I was just immersed in performing. I couldn't really focus properly. I'd never sung the song before in front of anyone or even privately. I'd never sung it and played bass at the same time either. So I was concentrating. I had the lyrics written on the floor. I looked up for the chorus and the audience, I think there was about 11,000 of them or so. They all had most of them had their lights on, their phones. And that experience of being the person at the front of the stage, which is rare for me and certainly never in front of a crowd that large, to see that I was having a torch song moment and the audience was responding to it and they sang the chorus and everything. That was incredible. That was a real moment. So I'll name that one. What's my favourite song, Debbie asks, to perform from my own album or albums? Well, I don't get to perform my own songs that often. It's cool. I've chosen my career path, happy with it. It's just that I don't get a chance to do it very often. When I do, I think it's more whichever song works with that particular lineup the strongest. It can change. One of my favourite on bass is I think it's probably Calling. It's called Calling. And the band name was The Deep MO. We're no longer together. I've got a new band now called Project PH. And we'll see, because we've only done like 2 gigs, I think, or something. So it's early days for us. But that answer will definitely evolve over time. Gary, did you play any other instruments before bass? And he says, cheekily, just how much do you love being a bassist? I love the way you put that question, because I love being a bassist. When I play guitar a little bit, not great. Actually, I use it for writing, and I started learning it before bass, and I would take the guitar home and I would learn bass lines on the guitar. My guitar teacher was a bit like, I don't think you want to be a guitarist, you want to be a bassist, don't you? And it turned out that yes, that's what I wanted to be, because that's what I was hearing in the music. I was hearing bass. And so back to the first question that Leighton asked, being inspired to pick up the instrument was that the bass always spoke to me the most in the music. And when I had an option to play an instrument where I could pick bass lines out, which was guitar, because before I'd tried clarinet, I'd play a bit of trumpet, play steel band. On guitar, it's a natural thing to it's a natural thing to play bass lines on a guitar. If as you're learning, that's what you hear. So that's what helped me to work out that bass was the instrument I wanted to play, was that I wanted to play bass lines on the guitar. So Professor on Bass JF, how things have changed since you first started playing compared to how they are now. I think it's harder in some ways, because if you want to be a session musician, I think maybe there's less work. I think there probably is less work. It's also easier to get noticed. Although there are more people trying to get noticed, there's more outlets for getting noticed. There's more ways of releasing music. There's YouTube to create, some sort of video that people love and spread and share around for you, which will help your career ultimately. And it's also a good calling card to send people to hear what you play like, so you don't have to audition so much these days, I imagine. I don't know so much about all of that, but I do know that that it's fierce. The competition's fierce. There's a lot more people that want to do what we do. There's maybe less opportunities to play with established artists. There's less money generally in the business for musicians. There's money in the business, but it's spread differently to how it used to be. Less CD sales, more streams, less income from streams, because of the way it's set up at the moment. I hope that changes. So yeah, there's so many changes. It's hard to actually talk about in a quick answer, but maybe that will come up again through my videos when I talk about business opportunities or options for developing your own career. I'll go in there a little bit with that. Professor on Bass JF asked me another question. The video you made demoing 3 different drum kits through drummers have always fascinated me. Would love to hear the backstory. So that is a Guru Drums video that I was asked by Andy Crosby. He asked me to do this video, and I just turned up not knowing what to expect or what to do, and they didn't really have a massive plan. They just had 3 kits set up. They were going to have a bassist, me, to play along with them, and I just said, okay, why don't I just play a medley of bass lines, some at different tempos potentially, or just different feels or styles. And then I said, well, I'm going to go in the funk kind of territory mostly, and you guys just play along. We worked out did an arrangement and, an allotted amount of bars per person, and that we just rehearsed it once, recorded it and nailed it really. Boys did great. And, I was the elder in the room kind of directing things, and that was a nice position for me to be in, because being the bass player as well, it's the bass lines that I wanted to be able to play. So yeah, it worked out really well. And I think it was a really interesting approach to showcase the different drums that Guru were making at the time, because I hadn't seen another video or anything like that, and I think it still gets a decent amount of views, which is cool. Chris, he says, sound design for bass, depending on the music client project, how do you approach this? Okay, so it's an interesting question, because you would think that I would have a whole bunch of sound design approaches, but when I'm in the studio, I'll only bring 4 basses maybe. If I really do know what the track is, because they've sent it to me beforehand, I'll know what basses to bring, so maybe bring less. If I don't know the music in advance, it's just a booking time slot and you don't know what the song is or anything, then you bring more, because you don't know what you're going to need. You can arrive with your sound, and that's what they want, or sometimes they want you to fit into whatever the prescribed sound will work, what prescribed sound will work in the track, and you don't really know what that's going to be until you start playing. So I won't soundscape my sound. I like to give a flat sound and let them EQ how they feel, hoping that they won't turn the highs up too much so that all the string noises is really present. But no decent engineer will mix a bass sound that bad. You usually get a decent enough mix of your bass. I do check it, and if I don't like my delivery, maybe it's a little scrappier than I want it to be, I know that with certain EQs that will be brought out in the mix, so I'll ask to redo the take and But yeah, I've been doing a lot more at home. Obviously, I've been mostly at home since the lockdowns, and I like that now. I never used to like that because I like feedback from producers and artists, but now I've got to a point where I really do like it because I've got all my basses set up here at home. I can choose from any of them, which I would never take that many to a session normally, and so that gives me the full kind of range of what I can do on a track. I can experiment. I can take a day if I want to take a whole day recording a track because I'm trying this bass and that bass, try a bit of fretless, try fretted, try the semi-acoustic, whatever it is, I can try all of it. And I like to edit all my bass parts myself, so I never send anything that if they used any part of it I would mind. I'm happy with everything I send. Nothing. I don't send rough takes. I don't send multiple takes. I'll send 3 maximum, and they'll be edited, cleaned up, crossfaded, everything, so that it's all ready to go straight into the track. And I do recommend that musicians do that because it saves the producers a lot of time. And if you've done, if the pocket's right and the notes are right, why would they need to do your cleaning house for you? You should do it yourself, really. Don't send anything that you don't like because it might end up on the record. Okay, Chris. Studios I recorded and experienced something special. Abbey Road with Mick Jagger and Dave Stewart. That was a while ago now, 2004, I think, yeah. And yeah, that was cool. I mean, it was Abbey Road, it was Mick Jagger, Dave Stewart. We were in there for a decent amount of time, a number of days. It was just lovely to be in that environment, playing that music with those musicians. Those situations are unique. Most sessions are because all the music's always different, the people are different. But this had that extra special something because it was Mick Jagger. And Dave Stewart is a really special person. You know, he is somebody that brings people together, and he brought together a really nice band for that. So it was a good experience. Why the right drummer is important being a bass player, and eventually what drummers you worked with that made an impact on your playing. Drum and bass connection. Right drummer. The right drummer is important when you have the choice. If you don't have the choice, the right attitude is the approach that works. So a drummer that might have difficulty with certain feels, you can just cut them a bit of slack and give them space to find it, or you lay it down really, really strongly and they'll come to you. Eventually, if you're playing together, everything will settle down, the pocket will start to really gel, and they might not have been the right drummer for you initially, or you might think, I know somebody that might have done a better job, but actually any good drummer, any decent drummer will rise to the occasion if the bass player is solid. I say the bass player kind of helps the drummer to be the right drummer. As long as the bass player is really playing in the right feel, style, pocket timing, all of that stuff, then the drummer should join the bass player. And I do find that drummers do join me eventually where I feel it. But if they're feeling it somewhere and I'm like digging what they're doing, then I'm going to go to where they are and play to them. If they can't move, they play the way they play, I play to them because the music has to sound good. And if we're in different spaces, it's not going to work. So I've learned that, I've made mistakes with that one being too firmly in where I play, and I want them to join me, and they won't make it. They're not hearing that. Their ears are not functioning that way where they're able to move their pocket to where you think the sweet spot is. That doesn't work. The music suffers. So ultimately, we really ought to work how to play together to make the music sound as good as it can. That's the aim. The other bit of Chris's question was eventually what drummers you worked with that made an impact on your playing. Gergo Borlai is a great musician, but he's also a great person. So he plays in such a sympathetic way that although I wasn't very comfortable playing, with beat displaced drums where the pocket is, the 1, 2, 3, 4 is where it is, and the drummer's making a strong beat on the and or strong beat on the 1E, or 1E and ah. Gergo can do that so brilliantly because he's hearing music in the 16th division all the time. So that's why he can play any time signature and accent any 16th note of a bar to make that now the strong beat. That sort of thing used to throw me. Sometimes it still does, but if I'm not paying attention. But Gergo is aware that the music will suffer if anybody's lost where the 1 is or doesn't hear the music um, that he's hearing. So he always plays in a sympathetic way so that you're aware of the musicianship of what he's doing is integral to what he's doing, but it's not at the expense of the music. And to me, that kind of musician is, no matter how technically gifted you are, that sympathetic style of playing is the ultimate. And that's why I say that go-go helped to kind of give me more confidence in playing odd time signatures, and in beat displaced kind of way, in a beat displaced kind of way. Yeah, he's just one of my favourite musicians for that. And this is as a musician, but it happens to be that his instrument is drums. But yeah. Jez, staying sane on tour. That is a pertinent question, but I ain't gonna answer it because I think that I need to do a whole video about staying sane on tour, or even just touring, what the touring experience is actually like. It is quite a thing. And you know, I have a unique experience, but I think that there's stuff in common, musicians' experience between each other, that I think it'd be quite fun to talk about. So I think I'll make a video about that, Jess. Nice question. Rodney, what are 3 things a beginner bassist needs to know? 3. Only 3? Okay, first thing, bass player needs to know how to tune your bass. Okay, don't just rely on your tuner. Learn how to do relative tuning. Get an A from somebody or whatever. Choose an A, I prefer an A. And tune your bass string, A string to that, and then tune the rest of your bass to your A string. If you can't tune your bass, it means you're not really listening to whether it's out or not. If it's out and you can hear it, you'd want to tune it. And if you haven't got a tune, what are you going to do? So I think that's key. Another really key thing is make sure you've got your bass physically set up on your body correctly, so that in a way that's physically correct for your shape and you know, the way that your shoulders work, how long your arms are, how long your torso is, what's comfortable. Maybe you don't want to go for too much of a bent wrist. I play with a very bent wrist. I'm lucky I don't have any problems, but I used to have these little calcium deposits appear, and I was just digging in so hard. I learnt to, you know, some people play with a flat wrist like this. I've lowered my bass, so my hand isn't quite so bent now, and now it's straighter. All of this stuff I learnt gradually, where to put the bass. I think that's something you can learn quite early on if you get a bit of guidance, because holding your hands in the right position is really important early on. It will affect how, you know, you're spread across the neck. It will affect your back problems, neck problems, shoulder problems. So that's mega important. And yeah, technique. I'd say get some lessons early on, or take some lessons like on YouTube videos or whatever early on. I'd say in person would be better, because they'll correct you. Your teacher will correct you. If they know what they're doing, they'll help you find the optimal position so that your fingers can do the correct stretch this way across the left, and also they'll kind of help you out with your right as well. So even if it's just 1 or 2 and you're starting, I'd say as a beginner bassist, just get like 2 lessons or something, just for physical corrections and things. You can do a lot of it online, you can do a lot of it through books, but maybe the physical side of things, you need somebody to just help you coordinate. I've had people come to me after many years of playing, and I've gone back to the beginning with them to clean up their sound, clean up their technique, help them with their left hand positioning, and to give them a sort of sense of how to listen to themselves so that they understand what noises they're making, whether they're intentional or not, and all of that stuff. So it's paying attention to detail is important. I think lessons right at the beginning, just 1 or 2, just even for that would be great. Make sure you can tune your bass and try and get the optimal position for positioning the bass around your body for health and for good technique. Okay, so I tried to get this within half an hour, which I have. So there's the end of the questions for now. There will be some more, maybe, if I get more questions. Oh, I missed one. Richard, nearly missed you. Richard asks, techniques from swapping from 4 to 5 string basses. Okay, top tip, I think keep practice up on both basses. Don't just switch over to the 5 unless you're never going to play a 4 again, but you probably will if you own one. So keep practicing on both instruments. Try to practice the 5 string with your eyes closed, because when you look at the left hand, you're going to see that D on the 5th string on the B string. You're going to think it's a G, and it might kind of get you wrong-footed or lost on your neck. It's a good idea to just mentally have a really good strong picture of what the actual bass neck feels like under your hands, and you can see it visually, mentally visually, as opposed to visually. Anyway, you know what I mean. And just try to put your mind and your thought into what you're actually playing, because we're so habitual bass players. We play habitually a lot of the time, but you need to play intentionally. So close your eyes, play the bass neck without looking at the beginning to get used to it. Get used to what it feels like. It makes you concentrate more when your eyes are closed. After a while, open your eyes again, of course. You might find it hard to navigate the fingerboard with your eyes closed. If you have trouble navigating the fingerboard with your eyes closed, you probably need to learn your fingerboard better. So it's good exercise anyway to keep your eyes closed while you're practicing at different points anyway. And certainly on the 5-string, I'd definitely advise you do that. So yes, now I'm at the end of the video, and thank you for watching. Please support me on Patreon. The link is below. And I hope you've found some useful information amongst my chatterings. Bye now.